Good day, everyone. Well, without tech spending, the US would have been close to or in a recession earlier this year. So perhaps Nvidia, which employed only 36,000 people at the last update earlier this year, holds the keys to global macro in 2026. And meanwhile, central banks have been buying up gold in droves. This central bank activity is about to help gold flip US treasuries as the most popular reserve asset around the world. It shows how a loss of confidence in US treasuries and fears about the global economy are making gold the winning trade. Bitcoin should follow, as it tends to trade in range relative to volume adjusted gold. And further, it remains superior to gold for many reasons discussed in prior reports. But still, central banks' mandates remain conservative, so gold is the preferred choice for now. With markets hitting new highs since the April tariff shock, and also in the years prior since the lows hit in late 2022. The doomsday predictors aren't just wrong, but they like to cherry pick their data to tell a story that scares people out of the market. And meanwhile, the strategy favoring gold and Bitcoin is being called the debasement trade by JP Morgan analysts. Now, crypto saw an inflow of nearly $6 billion last week, and that was the largest weekly inflow so far in history. Big money is moving because confidence in the global financial system is starting to fray. Global growth is slowing, debt loads are exploding, and the risk of a major credit event, something breaking in the bond or banking system, is rising fast. So under the system of capitalism, people can move their money to where it will be treated the best. And we first saw that it was individuals doing this, then the small business and private companies, then the public companies, and that was followed by the larger financial institutions. And eventually we're going to see the central banks and nation states doing the same. That said, if we switch gears to the Bitcoin miners, we put reports out on Mara and CLSK on September 20th. Both have done very well in anticipation of integrating AI into their operations, much as other Bitcoin miners have done. While CLSK still remains more of a pure play on Bitcoin, it is assumed that it too is joining the AI club. Our best performing long stock idea in the summer of 2025 has been IREN. It's had a five-fold gain from our recommendation point, which began a sharp upside trend after shifting its business focus from crypto mining to data center AI infrastructure. AI cloud services now generate multi-hundred million annualized revenues for the most aggressive miners, and companies are redeploying large energy and GPU resources for AI workloads, offering up to 25 times the revenue per kilowatt hour compared to traditional Bitcoin mining. Leading Bitcoin miners integrating AI can see stock prices move 2x or more from current 2025 highs, but that's provided that AI and high-performance computing demand continues to meteoric levels and operational execution remains strong. This sector is now among the highest momentum AI agency trades in global equities. And spurring this continued uptrend is Bitcoin, which likely has more upside given its past history. It has yet to have a climax top. And if such does occur, it could happen within the next 3 to 6 months. It's hard to predict. Climax tops in Bitcoin have always been met with 20x or more price gains from Bitcoin's prior major lows. So Bitcoin then, after that climax top, typically will correct more than 2/3 to 3/4. And given that the cycles have become more compressed over the years, in the current case, we could see a potential upside of $231,000 of Bitcoin. That would be a 15x from the lows, to 308,000, which would be a 20x gain from the lows. And the lows were about 15,400 in this cycle. And that said, climax tops have exceeded 20x. So if such were to occur, it is possible we could see 500,000 in Bitcoin. But keep in mind that as all climax tops, they quickly reverse. And Bitcoin traditionally has halved its price, falling more than 50% within just a few weeks off the peak. And so if it repeats this, and if it were to hit that 500,000 mark, would not be surprised to see it fall quickly below 250,000, then head lower as it formed its new base. Now, one indicator that people watch quite a bit, it's the pi cycle top indicator, and so far it's been able to predict Bitcoin market cycle tops from 2013, the one in 2017, and also 2021. And as of this year, it has not yet signaled a top. That also suggests the current Bitcoin bull market may yet have room to run. Some expert analysis forecasts the next cycle top could occur as late as 2026, with prices reaching as high as 400,000. And current projections also suggest a possible crossover signal that would trigger this pi cycle top indicator near February 2026 at around 258,000 per Bitcoin. So people are still considering this indicator valid, and it may reflect, however, an extended cycle this time, since the Bitcoin cycles have slowed somewhat. And I would also remind everyone that the pi top indicator has, while it's worked, it's only worked on the three prior major cycles, starting in 2014. So far so good, but that's only 3 data points. So it's important not to get too carried away with these indicators, because they are eventually prone to failure. Gil, how are you seeing everything?
Well, you had nothing to say about gold. It's cruising to new highs, 4,067 on COMEX futures. I'm going to guess spot gold is maybe 10 or 15 bucks lower, but just slashed through 4,000. And you have, Goldman Sachs talking about the dollar debasement trade, which I think is definitely real. Whether Bitcoin is a major beneficiary of that, I'm trying to figure this out. That was a pretty sharp move. And you can see here, you had a double top here, and right now you're kind of running into resistance along this left side peak, and it's kind of just sitting there. So I would say, as gold is just shooting higher, Bitcoin's kind of lagging. Whether it catches up and rides gold's tail in the dollar debasement change is still in flux. So we'll see how this plays out. I noticed that MicroStrategy, rather, this stock's getting hammered. Bitcoin, pushes briefly to a new high, and this stock's getting hammered as a short at the 200-day line yesterday. So what gives with that? So, I don't know. I like the miners are all doing very well for me. So, I mean, you look at stuff like Nova Gold Resources, this thing's just huge. I mean, you don't need to get into AI. Iron is the one to be in my view, and that's holding up fine. All the other garbage is just go up and down. Like this morning, I noticed, what's his name? Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia. The market's kind of flattish, futures are kind of flattish. And then he goes on CNBC and says that the AI trade, there's still a lot of room left in the AI trade. And then everything starts going up. And so today, what do you see happening? They're piling into all these semiconductors and other names, because you had AMD, interestingly, getting a 10% stake taken by OpenAI, and I guess OpenAI got the money from Nvidia a couple of weeks ago when Nvidia invested $100 billion, which is then used to buy Nvidia's chips. So it's kind of like a daisy chain where all these companies are doing business with each other. But where is the real growth? And I don't really see it outside of just the frenzy to scale up and buy AI tech and chips and data centers and whatnot. We look at Oracle, and Oracle is interesting because I pointed out a while ago that when they gapped up here, I listened to the earnings conference call, and frankly, I was not really that impressed, because nobody said anything about profit margins, And sure enough, it turns out there's some leaked documents that were published yesterday, and that is that they have exceptionally low gross profit margins on AI server rentals. According to this one report, particularly those using NVIDIA GPUs, which has raised doubts about the sustainability and profitability of Oracle's aggressive AI expansion despite booming revenue contracts. And what I thought was very interesting, and maybe even telling again, is that the response of the company was to simply reiterate what they said during their conference call, which is that they're going to have 80 billion this year and 110 billion next year, and then another 200 billion next. So all of this is on the come, but you have basically 14% gross margins, which are far below Oracle's overall company average of around 70%, and even lower than many non-tech retail sectors. So this one looks like a short at the 20-day line to me. It was a short at 300 a couple of weeks ago. That's a century mark. Now you're bouncing around the 200-day line. It looks like a short to me here. So we'll see how all this goes. But a lot of this is big hype, and so you better be discriminating. And like I said, why do I need to mess with something like Oracle? Just play with this one until it busts the 10-day line. And right now you're kind of going parabolic, but not a lot wrong with it yet, but it is getting a little bit climactic in the short term. So we'll see how this all plays out. And like I said, Nelson Wang gets on the TV and starts babbling about how, the AI trade, there's still room left in the AI trade. How does he know? He doesn't know. He just talking his book. So you get these nice snapback rallies, analog devices pushing up towards the 50-day line. That was a short there yesterday. AMAT spinning back above the 10-day line. AMD, there's AMD pushing back up to the highs of Monday. We'll see how that plays out. But the business is coming. It's on the come again, like I said, and we'll just have to see how this all plays out. So Arista Networks is trying to post a pocket pivot off the 10-day line. ARM Holdings is stalling along this left side peak here. This peak is at 158.89, and it's trading at 158.54. So it's a little bit double toppy. Now, I don't know, is somebody going to invest some money in them too? I don't know. ASML, which got the whole semiconductor equipment space running, busting the 10-day line on heavy volume. Remember, they talked about how they were going to use AI to be able to develop AI chips faster and blah, blah, blah. And that's what got this whole thing going. Broadcom just hanging along the 20-day line. Intel hanging along the 10-day line. Here's KLA breaking below the 10 yesterday. So you can see the bounces today in a lot of these names. Are they going anywhere? Is this stuff I want to be piling into here? No. I'm happy to be in iron and just let it hang for now. And gold miners, silver miners, all just ripping. Anyway, Supermicro, they had a deal they announced back here last week, I think, with this company, DigiX. And this stock actually went and posted. Let's see if it comes up. You had a couple of pocket pivots along the 50-day line, but it's coming back in pretty fast. So you get some hypey moves and stuff. A lot of the FOMO areas of the market have been going bonkers. But a couple other things I want to cover real quick. If you look at, say, Micron, for example, and this will be interesting, like I was saying, how these play out. Micron trading at 195.17. What you'll notice is that on Monday, you reversed at the $200 century mark. You got up to like 201, I believe. And then you reverse. So that could play out as a century mark short. I just keep an eye on this and see how this one resolves. But it is interesting that you are seeing some of these names running into potential century mark resistance. You see Taiwan Semi, it's trading about 1% and change above the 300 level. But yesterday it failed at the 300 level, but that's a level to watch, okay? So on the one hand, if it can decisively clear the $300 level, that would be a long entry using the 300 level as a selling guide. Now, if it reverses, like we've seen Micron do, then you may have a situation where it becomes a short sale, a century mark short sale on that basis. So also AMAT hanging around the 200 level, but it's a little extended here from the 200 level for that to become relevant. Right now I'm watching the 10-day line. As far as miners go, I mean, that's been a wonderful place to be. And today the action is spotty, but if you're in some of the better names, like I like some of these intermediate players like Equinox Gold, trying to, well, this morning the volume is running higher, but it's just running higher because the price of gold is going higher, and this stock is probably a $20 stock at least. You also see smaller names like Nova Gold, this one I pointed out, just tracking tight sideways, and that looks very constructive, but these have been big winners. You have even Newmont. Let's see if I'll just run through these. And I think what you're basically seeing, you got Barrick sitting tight along the 10-day line. That looks viable. B2 Gold, Eldorado, Fortuna Mines pushing higher. So that one's ripping higher. The Fed comes out today, don't they, with their meeting minutes, right? What time does that come out, Chris? Like 10? 10 my time?
Yeah, yeah, I
So
think
in a
so.
couple hours, so in about an hour and a half. So we'll see how that all plays out. But these are all pushing, and the silver is even more so. With silver running, we're at 48.90 right now in the futures. I'm guessing spot is probably 20 cents low or something like that. But you can see core mining. There's a pocket pivot off the 10-day line. That's a continuation pocket pivot. But you look at all these names; they've all been trending very nicely. Endeavor Silver, a big shakeout, moving average undercut and rally at the 10-day line, and now you're running huge volume, so it definitely wants to go higher, it looks like. First Majestic, a viable gap up, huge volume. That's a $20 stock as far as I'm concerned, based on the amount of silver they produce and the price of silver. So a lot of these things have been laying back for a while. And now I think you could see some climactic type runs here. Silver definitely going bonkers. That's a viable gap up in the SLV, but it did actually trade up overnight continuously, so not necessarily a gap up situation, but still moving higher, making higher highs. And silver is absurdly undervalued based on the supply-demand imbalance that exists and has existed for a while. So what's going on with the metals is that you're seeing the trading in the metals, in physical metals, is moving away from the US and London and more towards Asia. So China has been more of a player, and they're setting up, I think, 3 or 4 sites to store physical metals. And so they want to be pricing gold in Hong Kong and dominate that way. And so they're taking it away from the LBMA, the London Bullion Marketing Association, and the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, which have controlled a lot of this stuff. And now it seems like they've lost control. So that's what I see happening here. Elsewhere in the market, let me look at my daily notes. Oh wait, let me finish going through these because there are a couple others. Pan American, we like the pocket pivot on this the other day. I guess it was last week. It's continuing higher. It tends to be the slower one. First Majestic is a runner. Endeavor Silver will tend to be a runner. Hecla Mining also will tend to be a runner, and that's pushing higher. Someone came out and lowered their price target to 875. Well, they raised their price target from 625 to 875, something like that. So all this time, the stock's going double that, and now they raised their price target to 875 and put a sell rating on the stock. So, like they know anything. Anyways, the stock's pushing higher. It's trying to push a pocket pivot, just barely right now off the 10-day line. But you can see that's where the action is, and you can see also some areas like this FOMO area, quantum computing. None of these companies makes any money. Form Factor does, but IonQ, I like this one. We've liked this one. A nice shakeout at the 20-day last week. I think probably it's a sell here, getting a little double toppy. Short term, these others are just up there. Quantum computing was a one-day wonder trade. And you got to be careful about some of this stuff because you chase it, and they will slap you. If you're in the stock on the wrong day, if you're in there on the right day, you're having a good time. But if you're getting there on the wrong day, then I think you're really having some problems. Anyways, that's one area that has been hot lately. The nukes, tiny nukes mostly, but you see the uraniums are kind of stalling. Look at nanonuclear. This was on fire. And see, this is what happens. If you get in late, boom, now you're suddenly underwater in a big way. New scale, that started up and now it's reversing. UCLA is acting okay. We've liked this one. It probably needs to hold the 10-day line, but we'll see. What are other? Drones have been another hot area. But again, here's AeroVironment. Now this one's interesting because you went through 300 a couple of weeks ago, and that actually worked out because you got 100 points in a jiffy. Stock went up 8 days in a row. You're up 8 now. At 401.50, you got to watch that level because that could be meaningful in terms of a potential century mark short sale But AeroVironment, in my view, is the big stock drone name, along with they do a lot of other defense stuff, but drones are a big part of their business. So that one, yeah, maybe it becomes a long entry here. I don't know. If it reverses, then it becomes a short, a century mark short. But we'll see. This is kind of getting extended. So a lot of this stuff is getting a little bit crazy. Coals have been on fire lately, and you had to get in on these early. I probably talked about some of these much lower in the patterns. Also, you have, if I go to industrial metals, Albemarle, the lithiums, because the government took a stake in Lithium Americas, but Alcoa is running because there was a fire at a aluminum plant in New Jersey or something like that. So that's running. And at first, what I thought was interesting is that Century Aluminum rolled over yesterday while Alcoa was rallying. And now today it turns around and breaks out to new highs. So go figure. Cleveland Cliffs, a pocket pivot today off the 10-day line. Commercial metals hanging tight along the 10 and the 20. Freeport coming back. That's pretty impressive, I got to say. There was an undercut rally through this low here at, what was that, 38.33. So that occurred last week and it actually held. But for my money, I prefer to be in the leading. I would rather be in this, the GX Copper Miners, Global X Copper Miners ETF. Hudbay is another one, ripping. There's Lithium Americas. I would be buying this one now. So, I mean, the place to buy it, if you were going to buy it, was this Bible gap up at the very beginning. I think it's kind of late to be talking about it now. Same thing with MP Materials. This looks like it may be breaking support. If it can hold, maybe this is a long entry spot, but you can see it keeps trying to break out and it fails. So we'll just see how it goes. But I'm a little skeptical of that one as well. Nova Minerals, these are antimony names. This one's moving. So this has been a good one. Perpetual Resources, I've been on these for a while now. Ramaco acting well. There's also Taseko Mines. They're being, I think that's a pocket pivot off the 10-day line. So that's another copper. Tech is being bought by somebody. I'm trying to remember who, but that's acting well. There's US Antimony. That's one I've been playing. And came out, you had a nice little shakeout at the 10-day line last week, and then you're blowing out to new highs. U.S. government has not taken a stake in any of these companies yet. I mean, it's become a game, try to figure out which company the U.S. is going to take a stake in. I know, here's this one. No, that's not the one. TQM, or no, I'm sorry, TMQ. There we go, Trilogy Metals. John Paulson's a big stakeholder in this one, like it is with NovaGold, but this, I don't know. They got a cobalt mine and they're developing. It's not producing any metal. The government's throwing 35 million at them. All right, we'll see what happens. But I don't know if I'd want to buy this one here. You could certainly try it if you treat yesterday as a viable gap up. Your low here is 596. You'd want to buy it as close to that low as possible and then use that as your selling guide. Otherwise, this thing's coming in 20% or more. You were at what, 788 yesterday, right? 798, I'm sorry. And you came all the way back down to 596. So what is that, like 30%? So if you want to mess with this stuff, go ahead. But it seems a little bit dangerous to me. I don't need to mess with it when, I'm playing stocks like First Majestic and Equinox Gold and Nova Gold and some of these others, even Newmont's acting pretty well here. And if it closes here, it's a new closing high. Goldfield's moving higher. So that's where I'm at. And I think you need to be cautious with all the AI clickbait out there, because I know everybody's talking about it. But when you start to look at the hard numbers outside of the daisy chain of business they're all doing with each other, and then you have the Oracle story coming out, the way that they responded to it, again, nobody's talking about the return on investment. So you're talking about the earning, the sales, of all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, I'm a little skeptical. So, I don't really have to worry too much about it because we thought iron was just fine at $20 a couple of months ago, I guess, or a month ago, a little over a month ago, month and a half. Well, close to 2 months ago. But, the PE, as I wrote on one weekend, is 18x forward estimate. So at least you're not dealing with these massive PE expansions in other areas of the AI space. And so it made it a much better candidate in my view. And sure enough, it's performed quite well. So anyways, let's see if there are any questions. No questions. That's all I got. You got anything else, Chris?
Yeah, we're good. Let's see what happens, how this
Yeah.
market unfolds.
Yeah, very interesting. You got the Fed minutes coming out, and that may figure into something. I don't know. We'll see. But there are places to be long, places to be cautious, and even some places I should point out very quickly to be short. And and this is another issue I have with the market. I should have probably talked about this. Home builders are getting blasted. Okay, rates are coming down, but it isn't helping home builders. They're just getting blasted. If you look around at some of the restaurants continuing to act pretty poorly. So a lot of the economically sensitive areas of the market still remain flat on their backs, and it's all AI all the time. But now you've got precious metals, and we'll see whether Bitcoin can hold these highs here and try to set up and move higher. So, but getting very interesting. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. Thanks for showing up. We'll catch you next week. Take care.
So long, everyone.